touch with us on 0972 568195. With us on 0972 568195.
Yeah, so on that, maybe perhaps Brian, realizing this is a very interesting topic that we have. Yeah, so I would want to know much on how you've been feeling when you go to interpret and then they bring an interpreter who is not really adequate enough to interpret and not really giving the proper information in sign language that you should do. How has that been making you feel? Thank you so much for that question. Yeah, so we as the deaf people, when we go maybe for a conference, yeah, we find someone, yeah, and an interpreter who has been brought there. And normally we don't find the professional interpreters who could not even understand what the topic really is and the program is all about. So we see only the way they could sign, and you can't even see professionalism in them and could not really fully understand. So it's really so challenging to attend the program because a lot of us could just be looking at them, the interpreter, and not really having full understanding of the program. Okay, so that yourself, Brian, like how has that made you feel when it comes to the need of having sign language interpreters in Zambia? Again, thank you so much for your question. Okay, so my question is, you talked about you go to an event where you find an interpreter who is not well qualified, not a professional interpreter, so to say, and then could not give you full information about the event and what is happening. You don't really understand, you don't benefit from the program. So how does that make you to need professional sign language interpreters to go to such kind of events? Does it really give you the need of putting a best interpreter there or a professional interpreter? Yeah, definitely we feel so bad because if the person is not really a professional, they could just use their own idea and basically interpret the skills that they have different from what is being discussed. We don't really feel good, and because that makes us to lose a lot of information and opportunities that has been presented. Okay, thank you so much for your question, Blessing. And I could want to add more about you. Yeah. what do you understand by sign language interpreter? Okay, Brian, that's a very nice and a good question about sign language interpreter. So, there's difference between sign language communication skill and the sign language interpreter. So, as an interpreter is someone who is able to transfer the information from one language to another language. So that is, when it comes to sign language, that is from either sign language to voicing, or from voicing to sign language without altering any meaning. And as a sign language interpreter is somebody actually who is well equipped and he should know more than just one language. Because yes, there could be many different sources of information. Maybe the speaker is speaking Chinyanja or English or whatever language, and then you don't know that language. Or maybe the deaf is signing, you need to transfer it to another language. So you need to make sure that the people surrounding you, they're able to get what you are interpreting. So as a sign language interpreter, sign language interpreter actually is somebody who is also qualified in more than one or two languages and is able to understand the environment and also should be abide to the code of ethics. Because the code of ethics is what governs what a sign language interpreter should do, how he should behave, where he should be, and also having an approach. The organizers and also the sign language consumers that he's interpreting to. Because when it comes to sign language interpretation, the truth is that you don't interpret for the deaf, no. You interpret for both, the deaf and also the hearing. Because if the deaf want to speak during an event, the hearing or people without deaf, they can't understand. So that's why sign language interpreter is someone who should make sure that there is a proper and uses professionalism when it comes to disseminating information into sign language. So there are those code of ethics that one should abide in, and that is about sign language interpretation. So a sign language interpreter is guided by the code of ethics. But somebody who don't know sign language interpretation, just knows basic communication, basic skills, he or she might not really fully understand what really sign language interpretation is all about. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your answer. And we'd want to know, ask you another question. What is the difference between sign language communication and sign language interpretation? So, like I said, thank you so much, Brian. That's another good question. So, sign language communication skill is where you learn everything. Okay, so you learn almost all the words, the letters which are there. Okay, the words, so to say, the vocabulary and everything, you learn them. But when it comes to sign language interpretation, you only get the many important words. And you don't even need to interpret everything. What is important is you need to realize that when it comes to sign language interpretation, sign language has got its own grammar that suits, and the deaf people are able to understand it so well and so quickly. So as a sign language interpreter, or when it comes to sign language interpretation, this grammar should be put in according to the sign language grammar or syntax. But the communication skill, you find that this is where what we talk or see, sign exact English. Yeah, like the way I'm talking, and then the interpreter will be signing whatever word, is, all those, and you look at that. Huh? But when it comes to someone who has done interpretation, they only pick the main important words in it, like to summarize it all, to say. For example, I'll give a statement of, you would say that English grammar, it would be like, President HH will be traveling to China tomorrow. You look at that, huh? President HH will be traveling to China tomorrow. And that is exactly English. But and you find that somebody who has done sign language communication skill has not been trained as an interpreter will sign exactly like that. But when it comes to interpretation, you will break that one and put it into real sign language syntax, which will be like, tomorrow, China, President HH, go or fly. And that is, and it's a clear one, and it's well understood in sign language. And the beauty about the deaf is that they don't want to complicate things, where you sign this, you say a lot. No, you just sign a bit. You can even be resting. You sign a bit, you rest, because yours in interpretation is just to pick the main theme and the main point. So all in all, when it comes to interpretation, it's more like making the summary. And maybe I can ask you, Brian, this question, like, how do you feel when someone is signing every single word in the statement that they are interpreting, or someone who is just speaking the important words? How do you feel?
Well, thank you so much for your question, actually. Yeah, when a sign language interpreter signs very professional, you know, us deaf people will feel very happy. We are thrilled, because if a deaf person sees this sign language interpreter who is professional, as a deaf person, we cannot miss any information. We understand everything and on point. Like, for example, blessings, you know, the way you sign is fluent, and us deaf people, we can recommend you very fast, and we can't miss even a single point, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what can you do? So I want to ask you a question, like, what can you do?
Okay, so you mean like what we can do for one to learn sign language, right? Is that your question? What is the question? Maybe you can elaborate that question again? Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, how do one get to learn sign language?
Yeah, what it takes one to acquire sign language. Okay, that's very true. Sign language interpretation, in short. So, Brian, what is the first of all is one should learn communication skill, which we allow everyone and anyone, as long as you have interest and commitment, you are able to learn sign language and you are able to enter into the sign language field. That is first important. And the beauty about sign language is that it doesn't need you to have a grade 12 certificate, no, it's a language you are learning. So it doesn't really complicate things like you need this requirement, you need to have this and that. No, what is important only is you to have interest and commitment, and also time for it. Definitely if you have interest and commitment, meaning you have time for all that. So from now, since you have already acquired sign language communication skills, so this is where now you need one to interact much with the deaf people. Because the more you interact much with the deaf people, the better it and the faster it becomes for you to understand what really sign language is. Because you interact with many deaf people who have different language registers, so to say, and the way they grasp information in sign language. Then we also have some training institutions where you need to go to. You are being trained as an interpreter, where you now need to know, to learn about, I talked about code of ethics. So where you need to go and learn about code of ethics, and also what you should behave, and when you are, and even the attire of sign language interpretation is so crucial when it comes to interpretation. But someone who doesn't know sign language interpretation, who has never been trained, they would not even know what to do and what to put on. Like, for example, for our sign language interpreter, we have Fedai, Yeah, he's putting on the correct attire of sign language interpreter because he's been through the training of an interpreter. But so somebody who has never been there would not know. So what it will need you to learn sign language interpretation is have interest and commitment, then know basic communication skill. Then from there, you go for the training institution for the deaf. Yeah, I mean for the interpretation, sorry to say that. Yeah, and on the same time, Brian, I would like to ask you, it's very important to note that we have these training institutions where one is trained as a sign language interpreter. Yeah, and how would you encourage the people without deaf to keep on going with the sign language interpretation and us to remove this low quality of interpretation in Zambia?
Okay. Thank you so much. So I want to know in detail, about the question. So ask me again. I want to get it more detailed.
Okay, so what I'm talking about, Brian, here is that we don't want this low level of interpretation. We want to promote sign language interpretation, and that's why we have the theme of what is sign language interpretation. So now, Brian, what can we do, okay, for us to remove that low quality of interpretation in Zambia? What is sign language interpretation? So now, Brian, what can we do?
Okay. Thank you so much for your question, actually. So for a sign language to be a profession, as a professional sign language interpreter, if you see a person is missing when it comes to sign language, we can motivate them to do more of deaf interaction and copy the signing styles of deaf people. So for a person to become a profession takes years. So we don't have to discourage them. They might lose interest, So it's very important for the deaf and the co-interpreters as well to learn sign language, and they will become a sign language interpreter with experience. And they will be enumerated by the end of the day. So it's very important to engage them in different programs that can actually benefit them and see the benefit of why sign language is important.
That's very good. That's very good. And viewers out there, what we are talking about is when it comes to sign language interpretation is one need to be so prepared, because it's not everything that you can interpret when it comes to sign language, and also not everywhere. So that's why when one has been trained as a sign language interpreter, you even need to know which assignment you need to take and not, because there are some cases where you need to be to go and interpret in courts, hospitals, police stations, and everywhere. And since you are not adequate enough for you to interpret there, it becomes so lethal and so dangerous that you can misinform the consumers or where you need to interpret to. So that's why we encourage that sign language interpretation is not something very difficult, but something very simple. As we said earlier, to say that what it really takes is you to be already into the service of sign language communication skill. And from there now you take it. Yeah. Others could start from there, from the ground. You don't know sign language, but when you go for the training, you are trained both sign language communication skills and also the interpretation. Because in interpretation, sign language interpretation, that's where there is also the deaf culture. You need to understand the deaf culture also. Just like it is, if I want to learn your language and relate well in your language, I should understand what the culture is, or your culture is it all about, and what you do. Then I'll be so fluent and I'll be so good in your language. So even when it comes to sign language interpretation, an interpreter needs to understand also the code of ethics and also the culture for that language. So it's very good, and we encourage a lot to go and learn sign language for us to promote professional sign language in Zambia. Not just in Zambia, but also worldwide. And it's about the communities that we want to build, strong communities and also strong reputation for all sign language interpreters that we have. I know Brian, you'd continue. I know you have the zeal and the burnings to ask me more questions about interpretation. Let's go. You can ask me more on that.
Of course, yes. Yeah, I really appreciate. So I'll ask you another question. My brother, Mr. Blessings, you know, I see you signing very good. You know, you are fluent when it comes to sign language. So I want to know, like, which college or university did you see where they learn sign language as a sign language and the training interpreters, and for how long has it been there and the exercising profession?
Okay, yeah, that's good. It's a very good question, and yeah, still maybe it can also mean where I also learned sign language interpretation, where I'd gone to. So first of all, as it stands, we don't have a government, okay, let me say, sign language, you come to sign language, it's not yet as an academic or so to say, and we don't have the institutions, well-established institutions for sign language interpretation. But we have a few organizations, institutions that are known when it comes to that, which is, I know about ZINAD, yeah, Zambia National for the Deaf. Yeah, they've been so good for some time to train people, and actually they even have a TVETA. Yeah, they are TVETA accredited, so they're able to train and then get some sign language certificate under TVETA. And there, me myself, I did with the ASLIS, which is Association of Sign Language Interpreters of Zambia. Yeah, by then. Yeah, and also we have other institutions. Like I said, we don't have really established, government-established institution to train us in there. And we have also like Zambia Deaf Society. They teach there, though I think them is also in sign languages. And also we have FSLIS, which is Federation of Sign Language Interpreters, the Translators of Zambia. We have Tivelen Motepo Zambia. We have Zamise also, they train there. Yeah, so we have those institutions. So when it comes to the duration of sign language interpreter, one, it will go up also, it depends also with the person. Yeah, and it can, at times it can take to about 3 months, but of course, you know, sign language is a language. So language is something that it's an ongoing learning, so to say. So you can even go to more than a year, so to say. But basically, 1 month plus, if you already know sign language communication very well, 1 month plus, it's a very good starting for you to learn sign language interpretation.
Wow, that's incredible, my brother. So thank you so much, and I wanted to ask you the other question. So how can we involve sign language interpreters on this program?
I really appreciate you, Brian, for making me like to recognize me as the producer of this Wapadela, the producer of this Wapadela show. So humbled. And remember, this show, being the producer of it, so it doesn't mean that I own everything and what, but we do it for the interest and for the sake of the community. Remember, this is an inclusive program that we have, which actually tries to foster and make sure that we have an engagement for everyone. So if we have a low level of interpretation on our show, meaning we have low level of participation and also discussion on our program. So being the producer of it is we make sure that the people that we bring on board are the people that we know that they have been so active in the deaf community, in the interpretation itself. So we don't just speak anyhow, as long as I know that that's one knows sign language, this one knows sign language, no. But the people that have been so zealous and so active in the sign language field for quite some time, and they're practicing their sign language interpretation. Because as you are here, Brian, yourself, what I'm saying, you're depending on the sign language interpreter that we have. And now if we never had that interpreter or was not giving proper sign language interpretation, you wouldn't have benefited. So it is my desire to make sure that the interpreters that we have, including me myself, I should continue to behave in a way that will promote professionalism in sign language interpretation, because that is what really governs and that is what really defines our show for today. So I'd like to encourage viewers out there to say that this has been an interesting program for today, which is Wapadela live Wapadela show, which has been brought to you by Tivele and Mount Pepo Zambia, and in conjunction with the Litovia. Viewers, note that, as we said, it's an interactive and an inclusive program, so everyone is able to participate on the program and actually to have an interaction with us. So still, I would go back to the introduction that we made to really understand the scope of our show, which is, as I said, this is an inclusive program that shines a light on the success and the struggles faced by persons with disabilities and people without disabilities. And we try to foster a space where everyone's story is heard and actually being valued. So by encouraging dialogue, breaking down barriers, and promoting equal opportunities in helping bridge the divide between these communities, which is the community for the deaf, the disability, and also the people without disability. So in doing so, this program supports the global goal of reducing inequalities. So that is under SDG number 10, by ensuring that no one is left behind and everyone has a chance to strive and to do whatever they could do actively and have full participation without their ability they could have. So this has been so interesting, and we look forward that in the near future and next week, as we continue with this show, everyone is able to benefit and to have an interaction with us. You're able to call us on the number which is on the screen. But as it stands right now, I can say thank you so much for your time, for being with us, and I would like to appreciate my presenter here, Brian Kachiza, who has been with us on the show, and also we are Fendaino and Prince, who have been the key interpreters on this show for today about only what is sign language interpretation. So I've been Blessing Sokauta with Brian in the studio. We say bye-bye. I don't know what Brian would want to say next.
Okay, thank you so much. On behalf of the team, I would love to say goodbye. My name is Brian, and my sign language interpreter is Fandina. So see you next week on same time, same place, and you know, be available, and we love you.